Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it.
What's good, YouTube? I'm back again with another video, and this time, man, we talk about the Appalachian Mountains. I heard a lot of creepy stories about it, so man, it really got me real interested in. And today, we'll be reacting to that. Um, Another thing, man, y'all go follow this channel. Eyes is open. Eyes is wide open. I'm sorry. But this is her channel right here. I'll be reacting to her video today. And yeah, man, let's get right to
Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform.
He's tired.
Around these mountains. Every corner of Appalachia has one. Mine, yours, your neighbor. We all have that old house, that place in the woods, that one stretch of road, or that holler that just feels different. Here in Giles County, in Southwest Virginia, we have several, especially here on Wolf Creek. If you've ever been down this way, you know how quiet it can be. Like it's almost too quiet. You know what I'm talking about. The way the back road hums in your ears at night. The creek, it winds right beside you, whispering, trying to tell you its secrets. Sometimes it feels like a friend, and other times it's sinister. The stretch of road we're talking about is the midway point between Rocky Gap, Virginia, and Narrows, Virginia. Route 61, Wolf Creek Road. In the spring of 1978, a young couple set off to ride the back roads at night, the way many young folks still do around here. Jeffrey Scott and Karen Noble left their homes around 9 o'clock that evening just to go spend time together, enjoy themselves, listen to the radio and talk, and make some memories. I'm sure that night, life to them felt like they were invincible, that it stretched forward endlessly like summer promises, hope, and happiness. They didn't know in less than 3 hours their story would end in a place where only the mountains held the evidence. The story goes around 11:50 that night, Timmy Vaughn came around a curve and noticed a glow in the sky and smelled smoke in the air. I noticed a late model Datsun burning along the side of the road. A late model Datsun truck was parked along the side of Wolf Creek Road and Wolf Creek ablaze, especially the engine and the cab area. And in the back of the truck was a body belonging to Jeff. Later on, Mr. Vaughn would tell a story about how he was standing next to the fire with his gaze transfixed on the truck, and the cold crept over him and pulled his gaze about 30 feet to the creek bank, where he saw Miss Noble laying face down with her face in the creek. She had been shot twice in the head, but that's not what killed her. She'd been drowned. Authorities later said that they believed both bodies had been shot in the head by a small caliber weapon, but Miss Noble was the only one who had been drowned. Imagine for a second being Mr. Vaughn, the man who found that scene. How that must have felt. How your senses overtook your sense of self. The crackle of the fire, the glow against the dark night sky, the smell of gasoline. And as many people in Appalachia know, you can smell the dark water that time of night. You can feel it. He said to him that night, it wasn't just a crime scene. It was a place where the mountain exhaled something rancid and rank that he never got back. No one was ever arrested for those murders, never charged. I know an investigation happened, but nothing ever came from it. Now, you know how us mountain folk will talk. Some will say they drive down that road late at night and they can see headlights coming towards them that just disappear right before they go around that same stretch of highway in the curve. Others will tell you that they hear the crunch of gravel and a vehicle turning around when there's no one else there but them. And some will even...
Oh, no, man. See, that type of stuff right there, That is creepy, man. Wow.
Even say that they can still smell the smoke drifting off the creek even on a dark, still night. Of course, you have folks that say that that's their spirits just hanging around, warning us off of the danger that lurks nearby. But then you have others that'll just tell you that it's just mountains remembering. They remember what happened there. They hold those secrets. And we all know the hills remember everything. When I was a little girl, we would travel that stretch of road with my mama a lot to see my uncle who lived in Withville. Just like any old timer, she always took the old back road that she knew and not the new shiny road, as she called it, which we know is 460. She'd always make sure our windows were rolled up tight, and she'd tell me, "Now, Beth, don't you look out that window too long, especially at night, because the creek has eyes and Wolf Creek never forgets." And boy, did that scare me at the time.
The world's first titanium nonstick pan. It's gonna blow your hair back. I'm Mike Pagale, 3 Michelin chef.
Now, I don't know if she was just trying to scare me, which, let's face it, she probably was. Where the woods don't feel right after dark, where the creek holds a whisper, or where something happened and it just never left. Those stories are how our mountains talk back. They're our history, our heritage, and our hand-me-downs. And they mean something, no matter how dark they are. Tonight, I gave you a little taste of how Wolf Creek remembers. What does your hometown remember?
Wow.
I used to do house calls in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. Many of my patients lived off the grid. Sometimes they didn't have running water or electricity, and I'd often find myself navigating to their homes using the compass in the car and my map. I'm going to take you back to this time I did a visit in the middle of the wintertime in probably some of the most unfavorable conditions you can think of. I am off the beaten path. I am not even on a road that is paved. Like, talk about snow plows and salt. Yeah, no, absolutely not where I was. I'm navigating these back roads the best that I can, and all I can think of is there are no guardrails and there are a lot of steep drops. So I am so relieved when I finally pull up to the property. And this property, while it looks absolutely beautiful and pristine with all of this snow, is like a 2-story cabin that looks like it's caving in on itself. The roof is starting to bow. The cabin itself looks slightly kind of off to the side. I was actually pretty surprised there was somebody living in the residence. So I walk up this porch that has not been shoveled. I have snow practically up to my butt. And the door is answered by this middle-aged woman. She says her name is Rachel. She tells me that I'm here to see her mother. So I'm greeted into the home, and in the main room, right where we walk in, there's a hospital bed on the far wall. On the left, there's a fireplace. To the wall I'm closest to, there's a couch. And then there's a recliner at the end of the bed. Before I meet the patient, Rachel's kind of explaining to me the situation. She came back to care for her mother following her having a medical emergency, and now she basically needs total care. She's very difficult to communicate with because of this complication. She only says a couple of things very repetitively. And I can see from the main area that beyond that, there's a hallway and I'm assuming the kitchen. So despite the fact that I'm not quite sure of how much the patient can understand, I always introduce myself. I always try to get an idea of how much are we understanding? What can I do to help here? And all Mary says is, nobody's coming. And every question I ask, she just says, nobody's coming. And I had spoken to Rachel and she said, it's very typical. That's one of the things that she says. Particularly this time of day, she starts to get kind of anxious. She has some sundowning, gets very confused in the evening, and she'll just start saying, nobody's coming. And I don't really think much of this other than the fact that perhaps this is how her illness has affected her. Rachel says this is her norm since she's been moved back home. And I'm kind of just trying to get an idea, get a gauge of what exactly has changed that Rachel's concerned. So during the visit, Rachel and I kind of start talking about her life and how she was raised on the property, came back again, like I said, to care for her mother. And all of a sudden her mom, starts getting very worked up and she's like, nobody's coming, nobody's coming. And Rachel's like, this is what I'm talking about. At a similar time, while Rachel is tending to her mom, kind of saying, Mom, it's okay, I'm looking at the doorway and I notice what I would best be able to describe is a hunched over figure with very long arms. walking past the doorway with its arms dragging behind it. I know that sounds crazy, and I know it's hard to imagine, but that's the best way I can describe it. And so I kind
Man.
of like nudge Rachel. I'm like, hey, I'm kind of like explaining. I'm like,
Oh man, I'm sorry. I would have been out of there. I would have been out of there. If I had seen something like that, man, that's something that you see out of a movie. I would have been out of there.
I swear, I'm like, you said that it's just you and your mom. And she goes, yeah, I just came home to care for my mom. It's just the two of us in the house. And I'm like, listen, I know this is crazy. Do you have like a cat? Do you have a dog? Do you have anything? And Rachel's explaining, no, it's just the two of them in their house. And her mom is, again, just in a state of nobody's coming. Nobody's coming. So I take a few deep breaths. I calm down. I think, okay, it's time. I need to finish up, and then we're kind of going to discuss what we think. I go over next to Rachel near the bed, and Mary's looking at me. The patient's looking at me. And Mary stops talking for a minute, looks at me, looks at Rachel, and says, that's nobody. I beg your finest pardon. Absolutely not. That's a no. Absolutely, that's a no from me. No, ma'am. Never in a million years could anything have prepared me for the way my stomach fell directly into my. I looked at Rachel and I was like, no.
Oh,
No,
no,
the
that's
end all
right.
be all is. I was pretty concerned about this behavior regardless, so we made sure that was taken care of. But I still stand firm on I saw something walk through that doorway. I know I saw something walk past that doorway. I suppose the moral of the story is when people say that they see nobody's there, who exactly is nobody?
Stop telling people you're going to write a book and finally get it done. You know your book is going to benefit.
Around Asheville, North Carolina, and a hiking area called Upper Falls at the foot of Grandfather Mountain in North Carolina. My partner at the time, now fiance, and I went there on our first vacation, and we like to hike a lot, so we picked an area that had a lot of hiking. So we timed it very poorly, but we went on a hike at Upper Falls. Now, it was gorgeous, beautiful. I highly recommend hiking there, timing it better than we did, but going hiking there. So up until this point, my fiance hadn't really believed me as much with my paranormal experiences that I had had. He was a little suspicious of them, but he gave me the benefit of the doubt, right? So we're hiking on this really hot but beautiful North Carolina day. We're very tired, but we're hiking back up to the exit because the sun is beginning to set. And you never want to be caught in the woods, especially woods you don't know, past dusk. So we are hiking out of there, and I look at my fiance, and his face goes white. And I was like, what's wrong? He said, don't you hear that? I'm hearing impaired bilaterally from hearing damage from infections when I was a child. So, no, I did not hear that, but thanks. And he said, I hear children laughing. Now, we knew we were the last ones going out because we were the last ones in. There was a group ahead of us, but we knew we were the last ones out. And the locals that were ahead of us were booking it. And I was like, if the locals run, it's never good news. And the forest went completely silent, which means there's an apex predator around, and you need to get out now. And this is still in Appalachia. So we're nearing the exit, and I'm huffing and puffing, and I'm trying to get Aaron to move faster, because we're both terrified, but we physically can't move faster because we're so exhausted from the hike. This was like a 45-degree angle most of the way down and back up. The hike was great. It really strengthened our relationship. We still talk about how beautiful it was, but at this point, it was terrifying, and it felt like life or death. And I look behind Aaron, who is 6'2", and I see yellow eyes rise out of the brush behind him, at least a head and a half over his.
Man, these stories are very crazy, but I truly believe that they're real. Yellow eyes, man.
I didn't tell him at the time. I waited until we got in the car. And I was like, I don't know what it was. I don't care to know what it was. But I'm glad we're getting out of there.
This is exactly why you do not go into the woods in Appalachia by yourself. So this girl's name is Kay. She lives in Florida now. She's 22 years old, but when she was 16 years old, she took a trip with her friends to the Appalachian Mountains. Now, Megan's grandmother lived in the Appalachian Mountains. They didn't really know what to expect going there, but they figured her grandmother lived there. They assumed the best. So they get to her grandmother's house, they unpack their stuff, and they go to their designated rooms. Now, Megan's grandmother owned 4 horses. Their names were Izzy, Holland, Nay, and Atlantis. So after they relaxed for a little while, they decide that they want to go horseback riding. They were out there for about an hour and a half until they got hungry and went home for dinner. So the sun at this point is just setting and it's very quiet. So they eat dinner. Everything is fine that night. The next day around 9 a.m., Megan's grandmother goes and visits a sick friend, and she's not going to be back until the next morning. So after they eat breakfast and hang out for a little bit, they decide again that they're going to go horseback riding. It's about 1 p.m. at this point, and they go out to the stable to get the horses ready when they have a huge problem. Nay is missing. So they go out and they're calling his name. They're trying to lure him in with his favorite carrot treats, and to no avail. So they decide that they're going to have to go looking for him by themselves. But when I say by themselves, they're going to split up. So essentially they're going into the woods by themselves. So Kay goes in her direction and Megan and Alexa go in their directions. Well, Kay is good for about an hour. She's looking for Nay. She can't find him when she runs into something terrifying. Torn and tattered with scratch marks all over it, she finds Nay's collar. Now, she immediately assumes the worst and she goes to call Megan and Alexa, and as soon as she tries to call them, the call doesn't go through. Well, right at that very second when the call doesn't go through, her phone rings. She looks down at it and it's no caller ID. And for a second, she's like, okay, this has got to be spam. I'm not picking up. But something inside of her tells her to pick up that phone. As soon as she picks up the phone, dead silence. You could hear a pin drop. So she goes to hang up the phone when suddenly she hears something that makes her want to vomit. This deep, raspy voice echoed through the speaker. It sounded inhuman and the speech was slurred. I can see you. Don't run, don't hide. She is frozen in shock at this point. And then the next thing she knows, lights out. She's waking up and Megan and Alexa are shaking her awake. She had fainted. Now it's around 7 p.m. at this point and they want to get back to the house. So they start walking back to the house, but they can't see anything on the path that they're on. So as they're trying to find their way back to the house, they hear that same voice again, except for this time it says, I can see all of you. They bolt into the woods, scared out of their minds, and they finally reach the house. And as soon as they get to the house, who do they see? Nay, eating grass with his buddies. Totally fine. Now, they're obviously stunned and relieved, but they're horrified because Nay's collar is on him, completely intact. Nothing is wrong with it. So immediately they call Megan's grandmother. Megan's grandmother picks up and she says, listen, I'll be back in the morning. So she comes back in the morning and she's like, what you guys did was super dangerous. She thought it was what you guys think it probably is. That was trying to lure them into the woods. During that time period, I wonder where that horse was, because I feel like that horse is really lucky to be here today. And like the phone call, I've never heard of that happening, of like someone getting a phone call from something like that, ever.
Growing up in the Appalachian Mountains, you know from a young age, do not interact with the things that go bump in the night. I moved in with my grandmother when I was pretty fresh out of high school. She was not doing well. I moved in with her to take care of her. She was bedridden. She couldn't get out of bed. She had a 2-story house in the Appalachian Mountains, and my bedroom was directly below her bedroom. I had a baby monitor in her room so I could hear if she needed anything. Well, this one particular night, I was sitting in her room with her, like I did a lot. We were holding hands. We were talking. And when you're elderly in the Appalachian Mountains, they have this thing called sundowners. When the sun starts to go down, your mind starts to go a little bit. During the day, she was sharp. At night, she would start to see things, and she would talk to things, people that I couldn't see. I chalked it up to nothing at first, but the longer I lived with her, the more I realized that those things were actually there. They were just things that I couldn't see. Anyways, this one night, I was in her room with her. We were chatting, holding her hand. She looks up. Her roof is like this. There are windows right here. So she just looks up out of bed at the windows. And she says, they're looking at me again. Excuse me? Who's looking at you? I still get chills thinking about this. Whatever. I chalked it up to nothing. Because it was sundowners. It was nighttime. Nighttime in the Appalachian Mountains is a special time. She falls asleep. I go to my room in the basement. Well, I'm not afraid to admit that not long after I moved in with her, I decided to leave a light on in the basement. It was like a fluorescent ceiling light that flickered often, like one of those creepy cafe movies you would see. I went to bed, couldn't sleep. It was a lot in that house. I couldn't sleep. And now I know why I couldn't sleep. I was laying in bed. I had an alarm clock beside my bed like most people do. I look over. It was 3 a.m. on the dot. They say 3 a.m. is the witching hour for a reason. So I look over. It's 3 o'clock. I'm like, oh gosh, still can't sleep. I have a light in the corner, a lamp, because I don't want any shadows in my room. That's where they live, is the shadows. So I look over. It's 3 o'clock. I lay back down, close my eyes, trying to go to sleep. Something hits the end of my bed. Doesn't touch my feet. Maybe a couple inches away from my feet. It felt like someone went with the palm of their hand. Bam, bam, bam. 3 times. Not 4 times, not 2 times, 3 times. Y'all, I shot out of that bed. I sat up faster than a piece of toast coming out of a toaster. I thought, oh my God. There's no shadows in this room. I look around, can't see anything, but I feel the presence. It's this heavy presence, and it still freaks me out thinking about it. To this day, I'm 30 years old, and I do not have an alarm clock beside my bed. I usually sleep with some kind of light on because I don't like the shadows. There are things that live in the shadows, especially in the Appalachian Mountains.
There's a lot of stories about cryptids and creatures and little critters running around these hills. I've heard a bunch of them over the years. This one might be my favorite. I've heard this one all my life. It's called Taily-Pole.
This is definitely one good story, man. This is something that you do not want to watch at night. Because I really truly believe when you watching this at night, it'll freak you out. You won't be able to sleep. These are some wonderful stories, man.
There was a man and a woman that lived way up in the hills. Now, this was years and years ago when living was hard, and I mean hard. And they lived off to themselves, never saw folks a whole lot. And it came one of the worst winters ever was. And these folks was starving. They'd done run out of food. The garden had dried up. Their pantry of canned food was about done. And the hills wasn't providing anything. The man came home one day. He'd been out hunting. And the wife said, I don't see no squirrels or rabbits. He said, I didn't see a thing out there. Nothing's jumping, nothing's moving. There ain't a thing to eat.
God,
she says, if we don't get some food soon, we ain't going to make it. We ain't got a week left. You got to do something. Well, this man loved his wife. I mean, he loved her more than anything, and he hated to see her suffer, and he felt like less of a man because he wasn't providing. He said, honey, I don't know what to do. Well, you got to figure out something because we're going to die. If you don't get us some food, we are going to die. He nodded and said, honey, tomorrow I'm going to bring us home some food. Well, they went on.
Man, I hope to God that the way this sounds, before we get into it, I may be wrong, but I hope to God that they didn't start going all accountable on this.
To bed, and the next morning, he got up and set out with his rifle. He looked all over the land they owed, didn't see a thing. Now, the hill dropped over into this other fella's property. Now, back then, it was improper as it could be to hunt on another man's land. You just didn't do that. It was considered poor taste, I guess you could say. But these folks was starving. They didn't have any other options. So this feller, he crept down a little trail. Even over here, he wasn't finding nothing. He hunted all day, way up to the afternoon. Finally, he found the old log. He just plopped down on it. He's tired. Belly was growling. Didn't know what he was going to do. He's like, Lord, I don't want to let my wife down again. Please help me. About that time, he saw some movement off in the distance. Couldn't tell what it was, but pulled up his rifle and he shot it. He heard this squealing noise. Something darted off. He thought he nicked it, but he didn't know for sure, so he went over. There on the ground was a big tail, almost like off of a beaver or something, but it had a big hunk of meat on it.
Students with ADHD save 10 hours studying with this Chrome extension.
But no, by all means, go ahead, skip the ad, save a few.
He's like, oh, we're saved. This will keep us going for a little bit for sure. He took that tail on home and took it to his wife, showed her, says, honey, look, we're saved. I've got us some meat. She said, what is that? He said, I don't know and I don't care. There's meat on it. You can cook it up and we can eat it.
I know that's right.
She said, that's fine. I'll make us a stew. She put it in a pot. After she cleaned it up, they ate every bit of it. Every bit. Their bellies were full for the first time, and neither one of them knew how long. They crawled into bed. They hadn't been asleep long. The wife heard a noise coming from outside, like a scratching on the front door. There's a voice, low and slow, said, Daily Bo, Daily Bo. I want my daily bow. Old man, get up. Old man, get up. I hear something. There's somebody out there. What are you talking about? He's half asleep. He don't want to fool with this. There's somebody out there on the porch. I done heard him. He knows better than to argue, so he gets up, grabs a light, goes out there, looks around, don't see nothing. It's like, you're crazy. You've got food in your belly. You had a bad dream. That's all this is. She's like, I know I heard something. They go back to bed. They ain't asleep long. That woman hears another noise. This time it's a scratching, but it's on the bedroom door. And there's a voice, low and slow, says, Daily Bo, Daily Bo. I want my daily bowl. Get up, old man, get up, get up. It's in the house. He's in the house. Something's in here. Get up. What are you talking about?
He was coming back.
There's something in here. I hear it talking. I hear it scratching. He knows better than to argue. So he gets up. He gets a light. He goes looking around. Don't see nothing. Don't hear nothing. It's like you had a bad dream. You got your belly full. That's all that's going on. She ain't having none of it, but she lays back down. They ain't asleep very long at all. But she hears a noise again. This time there's a scratching at the foot of the bed. And a voice, low and slow. Daily Bo, Daily Bo. I want my daily bowl. It was a couple weeks went by. Nobody heard from this couple. You know, they lived way out in the hills and didn't visit a whole lot, but they did go to church on Sundays. And his brother got a little worried about it when they didn't show up on the second Sunday. So he went up, knocked on the door. Wasn't no answer. He noticed there wasn't no fire burning in the chimney, and it's cold. There should have been smoke coming out for sure. So, you all home? What are you doing? He pushed open the door. It wasn't locked. Everything inside looked normal. He went on in, looked around, went to the bedroom, knocked on the door. You all in there? You okay? You sick? He opened the door, looked in. Nothing there. Bed been slept in. They weren't there. He went back outside. Worried, not knowing what was going on. That's when he heard it. Under the porch, there's a scratching noise and a voice. low and slow. Daily bow. Daily bow. I got my daily bow.
If you've ever felt watched or seen something just beyond the light, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. As always,
Well, man, I hope y'all appreciate this video. If y'all made it this far, man, do your boy a favor, man, and make sure you like, share, and comment, man. And y'all catch me in the next one. Peace.